She thought escaping her billionaire husband would save her. She was wrong. 6 months pregnant with twins she never told him about, Claire Whitmore stands frozen in a Manhattan crosswalk as rain pounds the pavement around her. The black convoy stops. The door opens. And Adrian Blackwood, the man she fled, the father who doesn't know, steps into the storm. One gust of wind, one moment. Her coat pulls tight against her stomach and his eyes find the truth she's been hiding. Some men let you go. Adrian Blackwood isn't one of them. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The rain came down like bullets. Claire Whitmore stood in the middle of Lexington Avenue, her sneakers soaked through, her second-hand coat doing absolutely nothing against the November cold. The crosswalk signal blinked red. She should move. She knew she should move, but her feet stayed planted on the wet asphalt, her body refusing to cooperate with her brain's increasingly frantic commands. Move, move, move. Nothing. Around her, the city pulsed with its usual chaos, horns blaring, people shouting, the metallic screech of a delivery truck somewhere close. Manhattan didn't stop for anything. Not for rain, not for exhaustion, certainly not for a 28-year-old woman having a breakdown in the middle of traffic. Her vision blurred at the edges. The sounds grew distant, like someone had shoved cotton in her ears. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach, 6 months round now, impossible to hide under anything less than a tent. The babies kicked. Twin girls. She'd found out last week at a free clinic in Brooklyn, sitting in a plastic chair while a tired nurse squinted at an outdated ultrasound machine. 2 heartbeats. You're having twins, honey. Do you have support at home? Claire had lied. Said yes. Said she had a partner, a family, a plan. She had none of those things. What she had was $347 in her checking account, a studio apartment in Queens with heat that worked maybe half the time, and a waitressing job at a diner where her boss kept asking when she was going to do something about her situation. As if pregnancy were a problem she could solve with the right attitude and a little elbow grease. A horn blasted directly behind her. Claire flinched but didn't turn. Her legs felt like concrete. The rain plastered her hair to her face. She could feel water running down her spine, soaking into her cheap cotton shirt. She was shaking, from cold, from exhaustion, from the bone-deep terror that had been her constant companion for 6 months. You can't stay here, you have to move. But where? Where was she supposed to go that would be safe, that would be enough? 6 months ago, she'd thought freedom would feel like relief, like stepping out of a cage into sunlight. Instead, it felt like drowning in slow motion, endless, suffocating, and completely alone. The convoy appeared without warning. 3 black SUVs, sleek and gleaming even in the downpour, moving in perfect synchronization down Lexington. The kind of vehicles that cost more than most people's houses. The kind that didn't stop for anything. Except they did. All 3 vehicles halted in flawless unison, forming a wall of tinted glass and chrome less than 10 feet from where Claire stood frozen. She blinked rain out of her eyes. For a second, just a second, her paralysis broke. Some animal part of her brain recognized danger and screamed at her to run, but she was too slow. The rear door of the center SUV opened and a man stepped out. Not just any man. Adrian. Claire's heart stopped. Actually stopped. She felt it, the awful pause, the moment where her entire circulatory system forgot how to function. Then it kicked back in with a vengeance, hammering so hard against her ribs she thought they might crack. Adrian Blackwood stood in the rain like it was his to command. 6'3", broad-shouldered, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost 5 figures. Dark hair pushed back from a face that belonged on magazine covers. Sharp jaw, ice-gray eyes, the kind of bone structure that made people stop and stare. But it wasn't his looks that made him dangerous. It was the absolute certainty in the way he moved. The unshakable knowledge that the world would bend to his will. It always had. He wasn't looking at her, not yet. He was focused on his phone, one hand holding the device while the other adjusted his cufflink with the kind of casual precision that screamed control. His security detail, 2 massive men in tactical gear, flanked him immediately, scanning the area like they expected snipers. Claire couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except stand there like an idiot while her worst nightmare materialized 15 feet away. Run! 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 Her feet stayed rooted. Then the wind kicked up, a sudden, vicious gust that tore down the avenue and hit Claire broadside. Her coat, already soaked and heavy, pulled tight against her body, the fabric molded to the unmistakable curve of her stomach. Adrian's eyes lifted from his phone and found her. The recognition was instant. His entire body went rigid. The phone slipped from his fingers, clattering to the wet pavement. For 3 full seconds, neither of them moved. They just stared at each other across 10 feet of rain-soaked asphalt while the city roared around them. His gaze dropped to her stomach, to the evidence she'd hidden for 6 months. Claire watched his face change, watched shock give way to something harder, colder. Calculation. His jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists at his sides. Then he moved. Claire, his voice cut through the rain like a blade. Deep, commanding, vibrating with barely contained rage. And just like that, her paralysis shattered. She ran. Claire didn't remember making the decision. 1 second she was frozen, the next her legs were pumping, her sneakers slapping against wet concrete as she bolted toward the nearest cross street. Behind her she heard shouting, Adrian's voice, sharp and furious, and the deeper tones of his security team mobilizing. She didn't look back. Her lungs burned. Her thighs screamed in protest. 6 months pregnant, malnourished, and running on maybe 4 hours of sleep, she had no business moving this fast. But terror was a hell of a motivator. The subway entrance appeared on her right, a blessed gap in the sidewalk leading down into darkness. Claire took the stairs 2 at a time, nearly wiping out on a slick patch near the bottom. She caught herself on the railing, gasping, and kept moving. The platform was crowded. Evening rush hour. Bodies pressed together in that particular New York way. Intimate, but completely impersonal. Everyone in their own world. Claire shoved her way into the mass of commuters, ignoring the irritated looks and muttered complaints. She needed to disappear, to become invisible. She'd gotten good at it over the past 6 months. A train pulled in, the 6 local, heading downtown. The doors hissed open and Claire threw herself inside, squeezing into a pocket of space between a teenager with headphones and a woman with a stroller. The doors closed. The train lurched forward. Only then did Claire allow herself to look back. Through the scratched window, she saw them. Adrian's security team, 3 men in tactical gear, had reached the platform. They were scanning the crowd, talking rapidly into earpieces. One of them pointed toward her train, but it was already moving, pulling away into the tunnel's darkness. Claire slumped against the pole she was gripping, her whole body shaking. The woman with the stroller gave her a concerned look. "You okay, honey? You look pale." Claire nodded, not trusting her voice. She wasn't okay. She was so far from okay, it was almost funny. He saw. He knows. The thought kept cycling through her head, over and over. Adrian had seen her pregnant stomach. He wasn't an idiot. He'd do the math. 6 months. That put conception right around the time she'd left him. Right around their last night together, when she'd still been his wife in every legal and physical sense. He would know these babies were his, and Adrian Blackwood didn't let go of what belonged to him. The apartment was dark when Claire finally made it home. Home. What a joke. The studio in Queens was barely 400 square feet, with a window that overlooked an alley and a bathroom where the shower only worked if you kicked the pipe in exactly the right spot. But it was hers. Her name on the lease, her money, what little she had, paying the rent. No one controlled it. No one monitored it. That made it worth every roach and water stain. Claire locked the door behind her. The deadbolt, the chain, and the additional slide lock she'd installed herself with a YouTube tutorial and a screwdriver from the dollar store. Then she stood there in the dark, dripping on the cheap linoleum, trying to remember how to breathe normally. Her hands were still shaking. She should eat something. The babies needed nutrients. But the thought of food made her stomach turn. Instead, she peeled off her soaked coat and shoes, left them in a heap by the door, and shuffled to the bathroom. The mirror showed her exactly what she expected. A wreck. Hair plastered to her skull, mascara, the cheap kind she'd bought at Duane Reade, smeared under her eyes. Her face was pale, too thin. She'd lost weight everywhere except her stomach. The pregnancy book said that was bad. Said she needed to eat more, rest more, stress less. Easier said than done. Claire turned on the shower, one kick to the pipe just right, and waited for the water to heat. It took 3 minutes. She counted. It was something to focus on that wasn't the memory of Adrian's face when he'd seen her stomach. The shower was lukewarm at best, but it washed away the rain and some of the panic. Claire stood under the weak spray and tried to think. He knows, which means he'll look for you. Which means, what? What did it mean? Adrian was one of the most powerful men in New York. Blackwood Enterprises owned half of Manhattan's commercial real estate and had fingers in everything from tech startups to private security firms. Adrian himself sat on boards, made billion-dollar deals before breakfast, and had the kind of connections that made problems disappear. If he wanted to find her, he would. The only reason he hadn't over the past 6 months was because she'd made herself invisible, paid cash for everything, avoided cameras, kept her head down. She'd deleted all her social media, changed her phone number, and never, not once, contacted anyone from her old life. But now he'd seen her. He had a starting point. How long do I have? Claire shut off the water and dried herself with a threadbare towel. In the mirror, her stomach was prominent, unmistakable. The twins were active tonight, rolling and kicking like they knew something was wrong. I'm sorry, she whispered, pressing her palm to her belly. I'm so sorry. She'd thought leaving Adrian would keep them safe. That raising them alone, poor but free, was better than the alternative. Now she wasn't so sure. The knock came at 2:17 in the morning. Claire jolted awake, her heart immediately racing. She'd been dreaming, something dark and formless, full of running and shadows. For a second she didn't know where she was. Then reality crashed back. Her apartment. Her bed. The mattress on the floor because she couldn't afford a frame. Another knock. Harder this time. Deliberate. Claire! His voice through the door, calm and controlled and absolutely terrifying in its certainty. She sat up, her whole body going cold. No. No. This wasn't possible. She'd been so careful. I know you're awake. I can hear you moving. Of course he could. Adrian didn't miss anything. It was one of the things that had made their marriage unbearable. The constant surveillance, the way he always knew where she was, what she was doing, who she'd talked to. He'd called it protection. She'd called it a prison. Claire pressed herself against the wall, as far from the door as her tiny apartment allowed. Go away. Open the door. No. Claire. His voice dropped lower, taking on that edge she remembered too well. The one that meant his patience was wearing thin. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. You're carrying my children. I'd say we have quite a bit to discuss. She flinched. Hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. They're not... Don't. Well, the word cracked like a whip. Don't insult both of us by lying. You're 6 months pregnant. The timeline is obvious. Those are my daughters, Claire. Mine. Daughters. He even knew the gender. How? Had he already hacked her medical records? Of course he had. Adrian Blackwood didn't wait for information to be volunteered. He took it. I left you, Claire said, hating how her voice shook. I made my choice. These babies are mine. Mine to raise, mine to... In a 400-square-foot apartment with no heat? His voice was razor-sharp now. Working minimum wage at a diner that's 2 health code violations from being shut down? That's your plan for raising twins? Claire's hands curled into fists. It's better than being your prisoner. Silence, long and heavy. Then, open the door, Claire. I'm not here to drag you back. I'm here to talk. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. And if I say no, then I'll stand here until you change your mind. I've got time, do you? She could picture him on the other side of the door, perfectly composed, utterly immovable. Adrian didn't bluff. If he said he'd wait, all night if necessary. And eventually, one of her neighbors would complain, or the superintendent would get involved, and this would become a scene. Adrian excelled at forcing her hand. Claire stood slowly, her muscles protesting. She crossed the small space to the door and pressed her ear against it. How did you find me? Does it matter? Yes. A pause. Then, security footage from the subway station. Facial recognition tracked you to Queens. Property records showed a Claire Mitchell renting this apartment. Another pause. Mitchell was your mother's maiden name. It wasn't difficult. Of course it wasn't. She tried so hard to disappear, but you couldn't really disappear in the modern world. Not from someone with Adrian's resources. Claire's forehead rested against the door. She was so tired, bone-tired, soul-tired. What do you want? To see you, to talk, that's all? I don't believe you. I know. His voice softened slightly. But I'm asking anyway. 5 minutes, Claire, please. The please almost broke her. Adrian Blackwood didn't say please. He commanded, demanded, took. Hearing that word from his mouth felt like some kind of trick. But what choice did she have? He wasn't leaving, and she couldn't call the cops. Adrian had half the NYPD in his pocket, and the other half wouldn't cross him anyway. She was trapped. Again. Claire unlocked the deadbolt. Then the chain. Then the slide lock. Her hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries. The door swung open. And there he was. Adrian Blackwood, standing in her dingy hallway like he owned it. Which, knowing him, he probably did by now. He'd probably bought the building in the last 4 hours just to make a point. He looked exactly the same. Devastating and dangerous in equal measure. The suit was different, navy now instead of charcoal. But the effect was identical. He dominated the space without trying, his presence making the narrow hallway feel even smaller. His eyes locked on hers, then dropped, slowly and deliberately, to her stomach. Claire fought the urge to cover herself. She was wearing an oversized t-shirt and sweatpants, her belly clearly visible. No hiding it now. Adrian's jaw tightened. Something flickered across his face, too fast to read, gone before she could identify it. When he looked at her again, his expression was carefully neutral. Can I come in? Every instinct screamed no, but she stepped aside anyway because what else could she do? Adrian walked into her apartment and Claire felt the walls close in. He was too big for the space, too tall, too broad, too much. His gaze swept the room in seconds. The mattress on the floor, the plastic bins serving as furniture, the hot plate on the counter because the stove didn't work. She waited for the judgment, the criticism, the inevitable commentary on how far she'd fallen. Instead, he turned to face her and said, "Are you sleeping?" The question caught her off guard. What? You have circles under your eyes. You've lost weight. Are you sleeping? That's none of your business. Everything about you is my business. He said it matter-of-factly, like he was stating the weather. Answer the question. No, Claire snapped. I'm not sleeping. I'm 6 months pregnant with twins, working 50-hour weeks and living in constant fear. Sleep isn't really on the agenda. Fear of what? You, she wanted to say. But that wasn't entirely true, was it? Yes, she'd been afraid he'd find her. But she'd also been afraid of the alternative. Raising 2 babies alone with no money, no support, no safety net. She'd been terrified of failing them before they even had a chance. She'd been afraid of everything. It doesn't matter, she said instead. Adrian took a step closer. Claire instinctively stepped back and his eyes tracked the movement. Something dark crossed his face. I'm not going to hurt you. You already did. The words hung between them. Claire hadn't meant to say them out loud, but there they were, raw and honest and completely true. Adrian's expression shifted. For just a moment, she saw something that looked almost like pain. Then it was gone, replaced by that impenetrable mask he wore so well. I know, he said quietly. I know I did. Claire's throat tightened. She didn't want his acknowledgement, didn't want his regret if that's what this was. She just wanted him to leave so she could breathe again. Why are you here? She asked. Really? Not the 5-minute conversation excuse. Why? Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then he moved to the window, the one that overlooked the alley, and stared out at the nothing beyond the glass. Because those are my daughters, he said finally, and you're carrying them in a body that's clearly struggling. You're malnourished, exhausted, and living in a place where the heat doesn't work in November. That's why I'm here. I'm managing. He turned to face her. You're surviving. Barely. There's a difference. I don't need your help. Yes, you do. He said it with absolute certainty. And whether you want to admit it or not, those babies need it too. Claire's hands moved protectively to her stomach. Don't. Don't use them against me. I'm not using them. I'm stating facts. Adrian crossed his arms. When was the last time you saw a doctor? Last week? Where? A clinic. What kind of clinic? Claire didn't answer. A free clinic, Adrian said flatly, with outdated equipment and overworked staff. Did they tell you you're having twins? Yes. Did they tell you that twin pregnancies are high risk? That you need specialized care, regular monitoring, proper nutrition? I can't afford. I can. He cut her off. I can afford the best doctors in New York, the best care, a place to live where you're not freezing half to death, food that's actually nutritious. In exchange for what? Claire demanded. My freedom? My autonomy? Going back to being your possession? In exchange for nothing. Adrian's voice was firm. I'm offering resources. That's all. You don't have to come back to me. You don't have to be my wife again, but you do have to let me help keep our daughters alive. The word "our" hit her like a physical blow. They'd never been "our" before. They'd been hers, her secret, her responsibility. Hearing Adrian claim them was terrifying and, against all logic, a tiny bit relieving. Because he was right. She was barely surviving, and that wasn't enough for 2 babies. One appointment, Claire heard herself say, with your doctor, to make sure they're okay. That's it. One appointment, Adrian agreed, too easily. Like he'd expected exactly this resistance and had planned 3 moves ahead. Of course he had. Tomorrow, he continued. I'll send a car at 10. I work tomorrow. Call in sick. I can't afford. I'll cover your lost wages. He pulled out his phone, typed something. What's your bank account number? Absolutely not. He looked up, one eyebrow raised. Claire. I'm not giving you my bank information. You'll use it to track every purchase, monitor every transaction. I know how you operate. Fair enough. He pocketed the phone. Cash, then. I'll have 500 delivered in the morning. That's too much. It's a day's wages and groceries. It's nowhere near too much. Claire wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but $500 would cover her rent, her utilities, and food for 2 weeks. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. Fine, she said. One appointment. Then you leave me alone. Adrian's expression was unreadable. We'll see. No, not we'll see. That's the deal. One appointment, then you're gone. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. One appointment. Tomorrow at 10. A car will be waiting downstairs. He moved toward the door, and Claire felt an unexpected flutter of something that might have been relief or might have been regret. She couldn't tell anymore. At the threshold, Adrian paused, turned back. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I never wanted you to be afraid of me. Claire met his eyes. Then you shouldn't have given me reasons to be. His jaw tightened. He nodded once, sharp and controlled, and walked out. Claire locked the door behind him, all 3 locks, in order, and slid down to the floor. Her hands were shaking again. Her heart was racing. The babies kicked hard, like they'd sensed the tension and were protesting. I know, she whispered to them. I know. I don't trust him either. But tomorrow she'd get in his car anyway. Because whatever else Adrian Blackwood was, controlling, dangerous, suffocating, he'd never lied to her about resources. He had them. In abundance. And if that could keep her daughter safe, she'd swallow her pride and use them. Just for one appointment. Just to make sure they were okay. Then she'd figure out what came next. Outside her window, in the alley below, a black SUV idled with its lights off. Claire didn't see it. She was too busy trying to calm her racing heart, too focused on the sensation of her daughters moving inside her. But the SUV was there, waiting, watching, because Adrian Blackwood didn't leave anything to chance, and he'd never let her go again. The car arrived at 9:55. Claire watched it from her window, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows that screamed money and power. It looked obscene parked outside her building, next to the overflowing dumpster and the rusted fire escape that probably violated 16 safety codes. She hadn't slept. Again. She'd spent the night staring at her ceiling, replaying the conversation with Adrian, trying to find the trap she knew had to be there. Because there was always a trap with him. Always some angle she hadn't seen, some move she hadn't anticipated. But exhaustion won out over paranoia around 6 in the morning, and she'd finally admitted defeat. One appointment. She could handle one appointment, get the babies checked, make sure they were healthy, then go back to her life. Simple. Except nothing involving Adrian Blackwood was ever simple. Claire grabbed her coat, still damp from last night, smelling faintly of mildew, and headed downstairs. The driver was already out of the car, standing beside the rear door. He was younger than she expected, maybe 30, with the kind of military bearing that suggested prior service. His eyes scanned the street constantly, never quite settling. "Mrs. Blackwood," he said, opening the door. "It's Mitchell," Claire corrected automatically. We're not married anymore." The driver's expression didn't change. "Of course. My apologies." But he didn't correct himself. Just stood there, holding the door open, waiting. Claire slid into the back seat and immediately regretted every choice that had led her to this moment. The interior was all leather and wood grain, climate-controlled to exactly 72 degrees. Classical music played softly through hidden speakers. It smelled expensive. It smelled like Adrian's world. The driver closed her door, circled around, and got behind the wheel. They pulled away from the curb smoothly, and Claire watched her building disappear in the side mirror. For a second, just a second, she wondered if she'd ever see it again. She shook off the thought. Paranoia. That's all it was. The drive took 20 minutes. They went north into Manhattan, weaving through morning traffic with the kind of confidence that suggested the driver had made this trip 1,000 times. Claire watched the city change outside her window, from her neighborhood's gritty reality to progressively cleaner streets, newer buildings, people in suits instead of sweatpants. They stopped in front of a building on Park Avenue. Not a hospital, not a clinic, a private medical center with a discreet bronze plaque beside the entrance and a doorman who rushed to open the car door before the driver could. "Mr. Blackwood is waiting on the 12th floor," the doorman said. "The elevators are straight ahead." Of course, Adrian was already here. Probably had been for hours, making sure everything was arranged exactly to his specifications. Claire stepped into a lobby that looked more like a luxury hotel than a medical facility. Marble floors, fresh flowers on every surface. A receptionist who smiled warmly and directed her to the elevators without asking her name. They knew who she was. They'd been briefed. The elevator was mirrored on all sides, which meant Claire couldn't avoid seeing herself. She looked terrible. Her coat was cheap and wrinkled. Her hair needed washing. The dark circles under her eyes had dark circles. Next to the polished perfection of this building, she looked like someone who'd wandered in from the street, which, technically, she had. The 12th floor was quieter than she expected. Carpet instead of marble. Soft lighting. A waiting area with exactly 3 chairs, all empty. And standing by the window, backlit by morning sun, was Adrian. He turned when the elevator dinged. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes went immediately to her stomach, then her face, cataloging everything. She could practically see him taking notes, the exhaustion, the clothes, the way she was holding herself like she might bolt at any second. "You came," he said. "I said I would. You also said you'd stay married to me. Forgive me for not taking your word as gospel." The barb landed, sharp and precise. Claire felt her jaw tighten. "If we're going to do this, can we skip the part where you remind me I left you? I'm aware." Adrian's expression softened fractionally. "Fair enough." He gestured down a hallway. "Dr. Chen is ready. I thought you said your doctor." "I did. Rachel Chen is the best maternal fetal medicine specialist in New York. I've had her on retainer since last night." Of course he had, because Adrian Blackwood didn't use regular doctors. He retained specialists, probably had an entire medical team on standby. They walked down the hallway in silence. Claire was hyper-aware of Adrian beside her, tall enough that she had to look up to see his face, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something woodsy and expensive that probably cost more per ounce than her rent. Dr. Chen's office was at the end of the hall. The door was open, and inside was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. She stood when they entered, extending her hand to Claire first. "Ms. Mitchell," she said warmly, "I'm Rachel Chen. It's nice to meet you." Claire shook her hand, surprised by the genuine warmth. She'd expected someone cold, clinical, bought and paid for by Adrian. Instead, Dr. Chen seemed almost normal. Please sit, Dr. Chen continued, gesturing to a comfortable chair. I understand you're carrying twins? Yes. And you're approximately 6 months along? 24 weeks, give or take. Dr. Chen nodded, making notes on a tablet. Have you been experiencing any complications? Bleeding, severe cramping, unusual swelling? No, nothing like that. Headaches, vision changes, dizziness. Claire hesitated. Sometimes, the dizziness, usually when I stand up too fast. How often? I don't know, a few times a day. Doctor? Chen's expression remained neutral, but Claire saw her exchange a glance with Adrian. His jaw tightened. What about nutrition? Dr. Chen continued. Are you able to keep food down? Any nausea? The morning sickness stopped around week 14. I can eat. Claire trailed off, not wanting to admit she often chose between food and rent. Just? Dr. Chen prompted gently. I work a lot. Sometimes I forget. Another glance at Adrian. This one lasted longer. I'd like to do a full exam, Dr. Chen said. Blood work, ultrasound, check your vitals. Is that all right? Claire nodded. She'd known this was coming. It was why she was here. Dr. Chen led her to an examination room that was nicer than most hotel suites Claire had seen. The ultrasound machine alone probably cost 6 figures. Everything was spotless, state-of-the-art, designed to make patients feel like royalty. Claire changed into a gown behind a privacy screen and settled onto the exam table. The paper crinkled under her. Her hands were shaking again. Are you nervous? Dr. Chen asked, washing her hands at the sink. Yes? About the exam? Or about him? Dr. Chen nodded toward the door where Adrian waited in the hallway. Claire let out a surprised laugh. That obvious? I've been doing this for 20 years. I can read body language. Dr. Chen dried her hands and turned to face Claire fully. Whatever's happening between you two, that's not my business. My business is making sure you and these babies are healthy. That's it. So if you need me to kick him out, say the word. You do that? Even though he's paying you? He's paying me to take care of you, not to make you uncomfortable. Dr. Chen's expression was serious. You're my patient, Claire, not him. Something in Claire's chest loosened, just a fraction. He can stay, for now. Dr. Chen nodded and opened the door. Adrian stepped in immediately, like he'd been waiting for permission. He took up position against the far wall, close enough to see, far enough not to crowd. The exam started with basics: blood pressure, temperature, weight. Dr. Chen's expression grew increasingly concerned with each measurement. Your blood pressure's elevated, she said finally. Not dangerously so, but higher than I'd like. And you're underweight for a twin pregnancy. How underweight? Adrian asked from his corner. Doctor. Chen glanced at Claire. Is it all right if I share details with him? Claire wanted to say no. Wanted to keep this information private, hers alone. But what was the point? Adrian would find out anyway. He always did. It's fine. You should have gained between 25 and 35 pounds by now, Dr. Chen said. You've gained 12. The number hung in the air. Claire felt Adrian's eyes on her, but didn't look at him. Let's do the ultrasound, Doctor, Chen said, her tone carefully neutral. I want to check on the babies. She squeezed gel onto Claire's stomach, warm, thankfully, and pressed the transducer against her skin. The monitor flickered to life, showing shadows and shapes that gradually resolved into something recognizable. 2 babies, moving, active, their hearts beating strong and fast. There they are, Dr. Chen murmured. Baby A is on your right, baby B on your left. Both measuring on track for 24 weeks. Heart rates are good, 148 and 152, strong and healthy. Claire stared at the screen. She'd seen an ultrasound at the free clinic, but that machine had been old, the image grainy and unclear. This was different. She could see details, tiny fingers, the curve of a spine, a foot pressing against the uterine wall. Her daughters. Real and alive, and depending on her. They look good, Dr. Chen continued, moving the transducer. Good fluid levels, placentas in good position. No obvious concerns with the babies themselves. But? Claire heard the word coming and braced for it. But you're showing signs of stress that concern me. The elevated blood pressure, the malnutrition, the dizziness. Twin pregnancies are high risk even under ideal circumstances. When you add maternal stress and inadequate nutrition, Dr. Chen paused, choosing her words carefully. The risk of preterm labor increases significantly. How significantly? Adrian's voice was tight. It's hard to quantify exactly, but I'd say without intervention, there's a 30 to 40% chance of delivery before 32 weeks. That's early enough to mean NICU time, possible complications. Claire felt the world tilt. 30 to 40%. Almost half. What kind of intervention? She managed. Rest, proper nutrition, reduce stress. Weekly monitoring to catch any problems early. Dr. Chen looked between them. Ideally, bed rest for the remainder of the pregnancy. I can't, Claire started. I'll arrange it, Adrian said. You can't arrange bed rest. I have to work. I have bills. Not anymore. Claire turned to glare at him. Don't do that. Don't just decide things for me. Someone has to. His voice was hard. Since you're clearly willing to risk our daughter's lives to avoid asking for help. That's not fair, isn't it? He pushed off the wall, taking a step closer. You heard the doctor. 40% chance of early delivery. NICU time. Complications. That's not a risk I'm willing to take. They're not your decision to make. The hell they're not? Those are my children. Stop. Dr. Chen's voice cut through the argument. Both of you. This isn't helping. Claire and Adrian both fell silent, though the tension in the room could have been cut with a knife. Dr. Chen looked at Claire. I understand you have concerns about accepting help, but I need you to understand the medical reality. Your body is under enormous stress. Twin pregnancies are hard even when everything is perfect. When you add working 50-plus hours, poor nutrition, and living in a high-stress environment, she shook her head. Something's going to give. The question is whether it gives before or after 32 weeks. Claire's hands went to her stomach. The babies were still moving on the monitor, oblivious to the conversation happening around them. What if I just try harder? Claire asked. Eat more, rest when I can. It's not about trying harder. You're already doing everything you can. The problem is structural. You need resources you don't have. Dr. Chen's expression was kind but firm. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to be honest. These babies need you healthy, and right now, you're not. The truth of it settled over Claire like a weight. She'd known, on some level. Known she wasn't eating enough, sleeping enough, taking care of herself enough. But admitting it meant admitting she couldn't do this alone. And that terrified her more than almost anything. I have a proposal, Adrian said into the silence. Claire looked at him warily. Of course you do. Come stay at the penthouse, just until the babies are born. You'll have your own space, access to whatever you need. Dr. Chen can monitor you as often as necessary. After the delivery, we'll figure out what comes next. And in exchange? Nothing, no strings, no conditions. His eyes met hers. I just want them safe, that's all. Claire wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this was really about the babies and nothing else. But she'd lived with Adrian for 3 years. She knew how he operated. There was always an angle. I don't believe you, she said flatly. Something flickered across his face. I know. So why should I say yes? Because you don't have a better option. He said it without malice, just stating a fact. You can keep pretending you can do this alone, and maybe you'll make it to 32 weeks. Maybe 30. Or you can accept help and give our daughters the best possible chance. Your choice. It wasn't really a choice. They both knew it. Claire looked at Dr. Chen. You think this is necessary? I think it would significantly improve outcomes, yes. And if I don't? If I just keep doing what I'm doing? Dr. Chen hesitated. I think you'd be gambling with your health and theirs. I can't make that choice for you, but medically speaking, yes. I think changing your circumstances is necessary. Claire closed her eyes. The babies kicked, a rolling sensation that had become familiar over the past few months. They didn't know how complicated this all was. Didn't know their father was a man who'd kept their mother in a gilded cage for 3 years. Didn't know she'd run halfway across the city to escape him. They just needed to be safe. And right now, Adrian could provide that better than she could. 1 month, Claire said finally, opening her eyes. I'll stay for 1 month. After that, we reassess. Agreed. Adrian said immediately. Too immediately. Like he'd expected exactly this counteroffer and was willing to accept it because he knew once he got her there, 1 month would become 2, then 3. Then suddenly, she'd be staying until delivery. But what choice did she have? I need to get my things, Claire said. I'll have someone pack your apartment. No. The word came out sharper than she intended. I'll pack my own things. You don't get to send people into my space. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Fine. I'll take you back. You have 2 hours. I need 4. You don't have that much stuff. I need to tell my boss I'm quitting, close out my bank account, return my keys to the super. She met his eyes. 4 hours, or I don't go. They stared at each other. Adrian's expression was unreadable, but she could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Finally, he nodded. 4 hours. But I'm coming with you. Why? Because the neighborhood's not safe. I've lived there for 6 months, and I'm shocked you haven't been mugged. His tone left no room for argument. 4 hours. With me there. Non-negotiable. Claire wanted to fight it, but honestly, she was too tired, and some small traitorous part of her was almost relieved. Because packing up her life alone, saying goodbye to the independence she'd fought so hard for, would have broken something in her. At least this way she could be angry at Adrian instead of herself. Fine, she said. Dr. Chen cleared her throat. Before you go, I want to do the blood work, and I'm prescribing prenatal vitamins. The good ones, not the drugstore brand. Take them with food, twice daily. I can't afford. They're covered, Adrian said. I'll have my office send them to the penthouse, Dr. Chen continued, ignoring the exchange. Along with some nutritional supplements. Your iron is almost certainly low, and you need more protein. The blood draw took 10 minutes. Claire sat very still, watching the vials fill with dark red. Dr. Chen worked efficiently, labeling each one with practiced ease. Results will be back tomorrow, she said. I'll call with anything urgent. Otherwise, I want to see you again in 1 week. I'll make sure she's here, Adrian said. Dr. Chen looked at Claire. Is that all right with you? The question was pointed. A reminder that Claire had agency here, even if it didn't always feel like it. It's fine, Claire said. Thank you for everything. You're welcome. Dr. Chen's smile was genuine. Take care of yourself. Those girls need you. The drive back to Queens was silent. Adrian sat beside her in the back seat. He'd dismissed the driver, choosing to drive himself. Claire watched the city slide past and tried not to think about what she was agreeing to. 1 month in Adrian's penthouse. 1 month of his surveillance, his control, his overwhelming presence. 1 month of being back in the life she'd run from. But the babies were moving, their kicks a constant reminder of why she was doing this. They didn't care about her pride, her fear, her desperate need for independence. They just needed to survive. And if that meant swallowing her pride and accepting help from the man she'd sworn to never see again, then that's what she'd do. They pulled up outside her building. Adrian killed the engine and turned to her. 4 hours, he said. Starting now. Claire got out without answering. Her apartment looked smaller than she remembered, shabbier. Adrian's presence made everything worse, highlighted every stain, every crack, every evidence of poverty she'd been trying to ignore. I'll start with the kitchen, she said, mostly to have something to say. She didn't have much, mostly canned food, a few boxes of pasta, some rice. She packed it into a grocery bag, wondering if Adrian's penthouse even had a kitchen she'd be allowed to use. Behind her, she heard him moving around. She turned to find him examining the mattress on the floor, his expression dark. You've been sleeping on the floor? It's a mattress. On the floor. I couldn't afford a frame. She said it defensively, hating how it sounded. It's fine. I'm fine. You're not fine. None of this is fine. He turned to face her. How long were you planning to live like this? As long as I needed to. And the babies? You were just going to bring them home to this? Claire felt something snap inside her. Yes, Adrian. This was the plan. Because this was all I had. This was what freedom cost, and I was willing to pay it. Freedom. He said the word like it tasted bitter. Is that what you call this? Poverty and isolation and risking your health? Better than being your prisoner. He stopped himself, jaw clenching. I never meant to make you feel that way. But you did. Claire's voice shook. Every day, every decision made for me, every friend I couldn't see without your approval, every moment of my life monitored and controlled. You want to know why I ran? That's why. Not because you were cruel, because you were suffocating. Adrian stared at her. For a moment, he looked almost lost. Then his mask slammed back into place. Finish packing, he said quietly. You have 3.5 hours left. He walked out into the hallway, leaving her alone. Claire packed mechanically, clothes into a duffel bag, toiletries into a plastic bin. The few possessions she'd accumulated, a mug with a chipped handle, a blanket from a thrift store, a photo of her mother that was all she had left of her family. It took 90 minutes to pack 6 months of her life. She found Adrian in the hallway, leaning against the wall with his eyes closed. He opened them when she approached, and she saw exhaustion there that matched her own. Done? He asked. I need to see my boss. Give notice. I thought you were quitting. I am, but I'm doing it in person. She deserves that much. Adrian nodded. I'll drive you. The diner was 12 blocks away. Claire had walked it twice a day for 6 months, memorized every crack in the sidewalk. Now she sat in Adrian's car while he navigated traffic, and it felt surreal. Her boss, Linda, was behind the counter when they walked in. She was a hard woman in her 50s, all sharp edges and no-nonsense attitude. She looked up when the bell rang, and her eyes went immediately to Adrian. You're not from around here, she said. No, ma'am.
Ande? Mo?
Boss, and you are? Her attention shifted to Claire, took in the expensive car visible through the window, the man in the $5,000 suit. I need to talk to you, Claire said. It's about my shifts. Linda's expression tightened. You're quitting. I'm sorry, there are medical issues. With the pregnancy, I can't keep working. Medical issues or him? Linda nodded toward Adrian. Both, neither. It's complicated. Linda studied her for a long moment, then she sighed. You've been a good worker, never late, never complained. You want my advice? Claire nodded. Whatever you're walking into with him, make sure it's your choice, not his, not the baby's. Yours. Linda's eyes were knowing. I've seen too many women give up everything for a man who promised to take care of them. Most of the time, it doesn't end well. Noted, Claire said quietly. Linda reached under the counter and pulled out an envelope. Last week's tips, 400 and change. Take it. Linda, take it. Call it severance. She pushed the envelope across the counter. And if you ever need a job again, you come see me. No questions asked. Claire's throat tightened. She took the envelope, squeezed Linda's hand. Thank you. Back in the car, Adrian was quiet. They drove to the bank, where Claire closed her account, $347, exactly what she'd thought. Then to her building, where she returned her keys to the super and signed a form terminating her lease early. 4 hours almost exactly. Her entire life in Queens packed up and erased like it had never existed. Ready? Adrian asked as they loaded the last bag into the trunk. Claire looked up at the building one more time. The window to her apartment was dark, empty. Someone else would live there soon. Someone else would sleep on that floor mattress and fight with the shower and count pennies to make rent. It wouldn't be her. No, she said honestly, but let's go anyway. The penthouse was on the Upper East Side, 57th floor of a building that probably cost more than a small country. Claire had lived there for 3 years and had never felt at home. Walking in now felt like stepping into a museum. Everything was exactly as she remembered. Sleek modern furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, art on the walls that cost 6 figures. The air smelled like luxury and loneliness. Your room is ready, Adrian said. East wing. Same one you used before. I thought I'd have my own space. You do. 3 rooms, bedroom, bathroom, sitting area, completely private. Same as before then. The gilded cage, just slightly bigger. A woman appeared from the kitchen, older, kind-faced, wearing an apron. Claire recognized her immediately. Margaret, she breathed. Ms. Claire. Margaret's smile was genuine, warm. It's good to see you. Margaret had been the housekeeper when Claire lived here before, one of the few people who'd treated her like a person instead of an accessory. I've prepared dinner, Margaret continued. Nothing fancy, just chicken, vegetables, brown rice. Dr. Chen sent over specific nutritional guidelines. Of course she had. And of course Adrian had already implemented them. Thank you, Claire said. Your room is ready whenever you want to rest. I've stocked the bathroom with everything you should need, but if there's anything else, just let me know. Claire nodded, suddenly overwhelmed. It was too much, the kindness, the efficiency, the way her life was being managed without her input, again. I'll show you to your room, Adrian said. She followed him through the penthouse, past the living room and dining room, and into the east wing. He opened a door to reveal a suite that was bigger than her entire queen's apartment. The bed was massive, covered in soft linens. The bathroom had a soaking tub. The sitting area had a couch, a television, a bookshelf already filled with titles she recognized, her favorites from before. He'd remembered. I'll leave you to settle in, Adrian said from the doorway. Dinner's at 7. Margaret will bring it to you if you prefer to eat alone. Adrian. He paused, turned back. Why are you doing this? Claire asked. Really, not the babies. I know you care about them, but this... She gestured at the room, the opulence, the care that had gone into preparing it. Why? His expression was carefully neutral. Because you're the mother of my children, and because despite everything, I never wanted you to suffer. But you let me leave. 6 months ago, you could have stopped me. You didn't. Something dark crossed his face. I thought you'd come back. The admission hung between them. I thought once you saw what the world was really like, he continued quietly, you'd realize what you had here, that you'd choose to come back. And when I didn't, I looked for you. His jaw tightened. Every day. I had people searching, but you were careful, smarter than I gave you credit for. It wasn't until last night that I finally found you. Claire stared at him. You've been looking for me this whole time? Every single day. Why? Because you're my wife. Ex-wife. We never finalized the divorce. He said it matter-of-factly. The papers were never filed. Legally, Claire, you're still married to me. The room tilted. What? You left before signing the final documents. I certainly wasn't going to file them. So in the eyes of the law, we're still married. Claire's hands curled into fists. You can't be serious. Check with a lawyer if you don't believe me. I will, tomorrow. And I'll file them myself. If that's what you want. But his tone suggested he knew she wouldn't, knew she was too tired, too overwhelmed, too focused on survival to fight this particular battle right now. He was right, and she hated him for it. Get some rest, Adrian said, his voice gentling slightly. You look exhausted. He left, closing the door behind him. Claire stood alone in the beautiful room that felt like a cage and wondered what the hell she'd just agreed to. Claire didn't go to dinner. She heard Margaret knock softly at 7, heard her set a tray outside the door with careful quietness, heard her footsteps retreat down the hallway. But Claire stayed curled on the massive bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to process the fact that she was legally still married to Adrian Blackwood. Still his wife. Still bound to him in the eyes of the law. The irony was almost funny. She'd spent 6 months thinking she was free, building a life separate from him, only to discover the chains had never actually been cut. Just loosened, given the illusion of slack. Around 9, her stomach started cramping. Not badly, but enough to remind her that she hadn't eaten since yesterday. The babies needed food, even if she didn't want it. Claire opened the door. The tray was exactly where Margaret had left it, covered with a silver dome to keep everything warm. She picked it up and carried it back inside, settling cross-legged on the bed. Under the dome was perfectly grilled chicken, roasted vegetables that actually looked appetizing, brown rice with herbs, a small salad, a glass of milk, and tucked beside the plate, a handwritten note in Margaret's neat script. The vitamins are on your nightstand. Take 2 with food. Welcome home, like she'd been on vacation, like she hadn't run for her life. But the food was good, and Claire was starving, and she ate every bite. Then she took the vitamins, horse pills that stuck in her throat, and drank the entire glass of milk. She showered in the bathroom with its rainfall showerhead and endless hot water, put on one of her old nightgowns that she found hanging in the closet. Someone had unpacked her things while she wasn't looking. Probably Margaret. The familiar invasion of privacy that had been constant when she lived here before. Claire climbed into bed and expected to lie awake for hours. She was asleep in minutes. The nightmares came around 3 in the morning. She was running through the penthouse, pregnant and terrified, while Adrian's voice echoed from every room. You can't leave. You belong to me. You'll always belong to me. The hallways stretched endlessly, doors appearing and disappearing, and no matter how fast she ran, she could never find the exit. She woke with a gasp, her heart racing, sheets twisted around her legs. The room was dark except for ambient city light filtering through the windows. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. Then memory crashed back, and somehow that was worse than the nightmare. Claire got up, needing to move. The penthouse was silent, no sound except the quiet hum of climate control and the distant noise of the city 57 floors below. She padded barefoot to the kitchen, thinking maybe warm milk would help her sleep. The kitchen lights were on. Adrian sat at the island, laptop open, a cup of coffee at his elbow. He was still in his suit pants and dress shirt, though he'd lost the jacket and tie. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing forearms she remembered too well. He looked up when she entered. Can't sleep? Nightmare. The word came out before she could stop it. His expression shifted. About? Doesn't matter. She moved to the refrigerator, found the milk, poured herself a glass. Adrian watched her the entire time with that intensity that had always made her feel simultaneously seen and trapped. You should be sleeping, Claire said just to fill the silence. It's 3 a.m. I don't sleep much anymore. Since when? Since you left. The admission was quiet, almost casual, but it landed like a punch. Claire turned to face him properly. You can't say things like that. Why not? It's true. Because it makes this harder. She gestured between them. I'm here for the babies, that's all. We can't. I know. He closed his laptop. I'm not asking for anything, Claire. I'm just stating a fact. You left, and I stopped sleeping well. Cause and effect. That's not my problem. I didn't say it was. His voice was level, giving nothing away. How are you feeling? Any cramping from dinner? The subject change was deliberate. She should be grateful for it, but instead she felt oddly bereft. No cramping. The food was good. Margaret's been cooking your favorites. She was happy when I told her you were coming back. I'm not back. I'm visiting for the babies. Right, visiting. But his tone said he didn't believe it any more than she did. Claire drank her milk standing up, very aware of how she must look. Barefoot in a nightgown, hair messy from sleep, her pregnant belly obvious under the thin fabric. Adrian's eyes dipped to her stomach, then away, like he was trying not to stare. I have a meeting tomorrow, he said. Business. I'll be gone most of the day, but Dr. Chen is coming at 10 to check on you. You scheduled an appointment without asking me. I scheduled follow-up care that you need. If the time doesn't work, we can change it. We. Like they were a team, like they made decisions together. The time is fine, Claire said, too tired to fight. Marcus will be here, my head of security. If you need anything while I'm gone, I'll be fine alone. You won't be alone. Margaret will be here, and Marcus is non-negotiable. There are people who might want to use you to get to me. I can't take that risk. Claire's blood went cold. What people? Business rivals. People I've crossed. It doesn't matter. What matters is keeping you safe. I was safe in Queens. You were invisible in Queens. You're not invisible anymore. His expression was grim. The second you got in my car yesterday, you became visible, and that makes you a target. Then I should leave. Go back to what? Your apartment's already been rented to someone else. Your job is filled. And even if you went back, it wouldn't matter. They know about you now. They'll be looking. The trap closed around her fully. She'd known it was there, had felt it tightening, but hearing it stated so baldly made it real. I hate this, she said quietly. I hate that you're right. I know. I hate that I need you. I know that too. He stood, closing the distance between them. Not touching, but close enough that she could smell his cologne. But needing me and trusting me are different things. I understand that. I'm not asking you to trust me, Claire. Just let me keep you safe. Let me keep them safe. His hand moved, hesitated, then settled gently on her stomach. The babies kicked immediately like they recognized their father's touch. Adrian's breath caught. His eyes widened slightly, and for a moment his mask slipped completely. She saw wonder there and fear, and something so raw it made her chest ache. "They're strong," he murmured. "They're fighters." Like their mother. Claire's throat tightened. She should step back, break the contact, reestablish boundaries. But the babies kept kicking, and Adrian's hand was warm. And for just a second, she let herself imagine what it might be like if things were different. If he were different. If she could actually trust this moment instead of waiting for it to turn into another cage. Then reality reasserted itself, and she stepped away. "I should try to sleep," she said. Adrian's hand fell to his side. "Of course. If you need anything, I'll manage." She walked back to her room without looking back, but she felt his eyes on her the entire way. Dr. Chen arrived at exactly 10, professional and warm in equal measure. She did a full examination, blood pressure still high but stable, babies measuring well, Claire's weight up by 2 pounds already. "The nutrition is helping," Dr. Chen said approvingly. "Keep eating like this and we'll see real improvement. It's easier when someone else cooks." "I imagine so." Dr. Chen made notes on her tablet. "How's your stress level?" Claire almost laughed. "How do you think?" "Fair question. Are you sleeping?" "Some. Not well." "Nightmares?" "How did you know?" "Common with high-stress pregnancies, especially when there's relationship complications." Dr. Chen's expression was kind. "You want to talk about it?" "Not really." "All right. But if you change your mind, I'm a good listener, and nothing you say leaves this room." The promise of confidentiality was probably meant to be comforting. But Claire had learned the hard way that nothing was truly confidential when Adrian Blackwood was involved. "I'm fine," she lied. Dr. Chen didn't push, just finished her exam, prescribed a slightly different prenatal vitamin, and reminded Claire to rest as much as possible. "I'll see you next week," she said at the door. "Call me if anything changes, bleeding, severe cramping, decreased fetal movement, anything at all." After she left, Claire wandered the penthouse. Margaret was in the kitchen, preparing lunch. The security guard, Marcus, apparently, was stationed by the elevator, watching everything with professional detachment. Claire felt like a prisoner in a very expensive cell. She settled in the library, a room she'd always loved, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace that actually worked, windows overlooking Central Park. She pulled down a novel, something light and escapist, and tried to lose herself in someone else's story. She made it 3 pages before the nausea hit. It came on fast and vicious, her stomach lurching without warning. Claire barely made it to the bathroom before she was retching, losing the breakfast Margaret had brought her earlier. When it finally stopped, she sat on the cool tile floor, shaking and miserable. "Miss Claire?" Margaret's voice concerned from the doorway. "Are you all right?" "Fine, just morning sickness." "It's afternoon." "Tell that to the babies." Margaret helped her up, got her settled on the couch with a cool cloth and ginger ale. "This happened when you lived here before, do you remember? The first trimester was brutal." Claire stared at her. "What?" Margaret's expression shifted to confusion. "The first pregnancy. Before you lost it. You were so sick you could barely keep anything down." The world tilted. "I was never pregnant before," Claire said slowly. "Of course you were. About 4 months before you left. You miscarried around 8 weeks. Margaret's brow furrowed. "Mr. Blackwood said you didn't want to talk about it, that it was too painful." Claire's mind raced. A pregnancy she didn't remember. A miscarriage that never happened. Why would Adrian tell Margaret? Unless he needed an explanation for Claire's occasional nausea when she lived here. A cover story for why she might be sick, might be tired, might need special care. But why? What was he hiding? "Right," Claire said carefully. "I'd rather not discuss it." "Of course, dear. I'm sorry for bringing it up." Margaret fussed with the cloth. "These things happen. At least this time, everything's progressing well." After Margaret left, Claire sat very still, trying to piece together the implications. Adrian had lied to the staff, created a false history to explain what? Her behavior? Her health? Why would he need to do that unless... Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Ask him about Viktor Kozlov." Claire stared at the message, deleted it immediately, heart racing. Then she sat there, phone clutched in her hand, wondering who the hell Viktor Kozlov was and why someone wanted her to ask about him. Adrian came home around 6, looking exhausted. His tie was gone, his shirt wrinkled, and he had the tight expression that meant things hadn't gone well. "Bad day?" Claire asked from the couch. He stopped, like he was surprised to find her in the living room instead of hiding in her suite. "You could say that. Want to talk about it?" "Not particularly." He poured himself a drink, scotch, neat, and downed half of it in one swallow. "How was Dr. Chen's visit?" "Fine. Babies are good. Blood pressure is stable." "That's good." He finished the scotch, poured another. "And you? How are you?" The question felt loaded, like he was asking something deeper than surface pleasantries. "Who's Victor Kozlov?" Claire asked. Adrian went very still. His entire body language changed, shoulders tensing, jaw tightening, hand freezing halfway to his glass. "Where did you hear that name?" "Does it matter?" "Yes." He turned to face her fully. "It matters a great deal. Where did you hear it?" Claire's heart was pounding. She should lie, deflect, protect whoever had sent the message. But looking at Adrian's face, at the barely controlled fury there, she knew lying would be worse. "Someone texted me, unknown number." "Let me see your phone." "No." "Claire." "No." She stood, putting the couch between them. "You don't get to demand my phone. You don't get to monitor my messages. That was one of the reasons I left, remember?" Adrian's expression was thunderous. "This is different." "How?" "Because Victor Kozlov is a very dangerous man who would love nothing more than to hurt me. And the fastest way to do that is through you." The words hung in the air. "So someone's threatening me?" Claire asked, her voice surprisingly steady. "Someone's trying to manipulate you, to make you afraid of me, to make you doubt me." Adrian ran a hand through his hair. He's a problem I've been dealing with, a business rival who doesn't understand boundaries. I didn't want you involved, but I am involved now." Apparently, Claire sat back down, suddenly exhausted. "What does he want?" "Blackwood Enterprises. Or rather, he wants me out of the way so he can take it. We've been in negotiations for a merger that he doesn't like. Things have gotten heated." "Heated how?" Adrian didn't answer immediately. He just looked at her, and she saw him weighing how much to tell her, calculating what she could handle. "The truth, Adrian," she said quietly. "For once, just tell me the truth." He moved to the window, staring out at the darkening city. 3 weeks ago, one of my properties was targeted. A fire. No one was hurt, but the message was clear. 2 weeks ago, my CFO's car was run off the road. He survived, but barely. Adrian's jaw tightened. Last week, someone tried to access my personal accounts. They failed, but the attempt was sophisticated enough to worry me. "And you think it's this Kozlov?" "I know it is. We have evidence. What we don't have is enough to take to the police without starting a war." Claire processed this. "So you're just, waiting for him to make a bigger move?" "I'm handling it. By putting me in the middle of a war zone? By keeping you here, where you're protected." Adrian turned back to her. "Marcus isn't just security, Claire. He's former special forces. The team I have watching this building could stop a military assault. You're safe here. But I wouldn't be safe anywhere else." "No, you wouldn't." The cage locked completely. Claire felt it click into place, final and absolute. "You should have told me," she said, "before I agreed to come here, before I walked into your war." "Would you have come if I had?" "No?" "Then you understand why I didn't." He said it without apology. "I needed you safe more than I needed your informed consent. The babies needed you safe. I made the choice I had to make." "You always do," Claire said bitterly. "Make choices for me. Decide what I need to know, what I can handle. You never change, do you?" "I'm trying to keep you alive." "You're trying to control me, same as always." Adrian crossed to her in 3 long strides. He didn't touch her, but his presence was overwhelming. "You want to know why I control things? Why I need to know where you are, who you're talking to, what's happening around you? Enlighten me." "Because the world I live in is brutal, Claire. It's full of people like Kozlov who see weakness and exploit it, who take everything you love and destroy it just to watch you suffer. I learned that lesson a long time ago, and I learned it the hard way." His voice was rough. "So yes, I control things. I monitor. I protect. Because the alternative is losing what matters, and I won't do that again. What did you lose? The question came out softer than she intended. Adrian's expression shuddered. It doesn't matter. It does if it's why you treat me like I'm made of glass. You're pregnant with twins and being threatened by a Russian arms dealer. You are fragile right now, whether you want to admit it or not. I'm not, Claire started, then stopped. Because he was right. She hated it, but he was right. I need air. I need to get out of this apartment. Not safe. I don't care, I'm going stir-crazy. Then go to the roof. It's secure. The roof isn't outside, it's just a different room in your prison. Adrian's jaw clenched. I'm not doing this tonight. I'm too tired to fight with you. Then don't, just let me leave. No. Adrian, no, Claire. Not while Kozlov is actively targeting me. Not while you're carrying my children. Not while there's even a remote possibility of someone using you to hurt me. His eyes were hard. You want to hate me for it? Fine. Hate me. But you're staying here where you're safe. They stared at each other, the air between them crackling with tension and frustration, and something neither of them wanted to name. Finally, Claire turned away. I'm going to my room. There's dinner. I'm not hungry. She walked away before he could respond, before she could say something she'd regret, before the tears threatening at the corners of her eyes could fall. Behind her, she heard glass shatter. Adrian's scotch thrown against the wall. She kept walking. The next morning, Claire found an envelope under her door. Inside was a phone, new, expensive, with a note in Adrian's handwriting. Your old phone was compromised. Use this one. My number is programmed in, along with Dr. Chen, Margaret, and Marcus. If you need anything, call. If there's an emergency, press the red button on the side. Security will respond within 30 seconds. A practical, protective, controlling. She should throw it away, should refuse to use it. Instead, she turned it on. There was one message waiting, sent at 4 a.m. I know you don't trust me. I know I haven't earned it, but I meant what I said. I'm trying to keep you safe. That's all I've ever tried to do, even when I did it badly, even when it pushed you away. I'm sorry for that, for all of it. Claire read it 3 times. Then she deleted it and tried to forget the way something in her chest had loosened at his words. The days blurred together. Dr. Chen came weekly, always with good news. The babies were thriving, Claire's health was improving. Her weight was up, her blood pressure stabilizing. The physical crisis was resolving, but the emotional one was just beginning. Adrian worked long hours, coming home late with stress written in every line of his body. He was polite, distant, asking about her health, but never pushing for more. They ate dinner together sometimes, Margaret's cooking filling the silence between them. Claire caught herself watching him, noticing things she'd tried to forget. The way he rolled his shoulders when he was tired, the habit he had of running his hand through his hair when he was frustrated, the rare, genuine smile when Margaret said something that amused him. She noticed when he stopped eating properly, when the shadows under his eyes deepened, when his hands shook slightly as he poured his nightly scotch. You look terrible, she said one night, 3 weeks into her stay. Adrian glanced up from his laptop. They were in the library, Claire reading while he worked. It had become their routine, separate but together, the silence companionable instead of hostile. Thanks, he said dryly. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept? I don't remember. That's not healthy. Neither is being 6 months pregnant and working 50-hour weeks, but you managed that for months. His tone was mild, but the barb landed. Claire set down her book. Is it Kozlov? Is he still a problem? He's always a problem. Adrian, he sighed, closing the laptop. We're close to a resolution. One way or another, this ends soon. That's not ominous at all. It's the truth. He met her eyes. I'm handling it. By yourself? I have people. But you don't trust them. Not really. She said it with certainty, because she knew him. Knew how his mind worked. You're trying to control every variable, manage every risk. It's eating you alive. I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. You just don't like the alternatives. Adrian stood, moving to the window, his favorite spot when he needed to think. The alternative is trusting other people with something that matters. And every time I've done that, I've regretted it. Not every time. Name one exception. Claire thought about it. Margaret, you trust her. Margaret's been with me for 15 years. She's earned it. Dr. Chen, I vetted her for 8 months before hiring her. Me, Claire said quietly. Adrian turned to look at her, surprise flickering across his face. You trusted me once, she continued, when we first got married, before you started monitoring everything. There was a window, maybe 6 months, where you actually believed I wasn't going to hurt you. And then you left. Because you smothered me. Because you turned into exactly what you were afraid of. Claire stood, crossing to him. You want to know why I ran? It wasn't because I stopped loving you. It was because loving you started to feel like drowning. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Adrian stared at her. You loved me? Past tense. But you did. Once. Claire looked away, unable to hold his gaze. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me. Why? What difference does it make? Because I need to know if there's anything worth salvaging here, or if we're just going through the motions until the babies are born and you can leave again. The question was so vulnerable it hurt. Claire had spent 3 weeks seeing him as the enemy, the captor, the man who controlled everything. She'd forgotten he was also human, also afraid, also capable of being hurt. I don't know, she said honestly. I don't know what we're salvaging or if there's anything left to save. All I know is that right now we're 2 people trying to keep our daughters alive. Everything else is complicated. Yeah. Adrian's hand came up, hesitated, then tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was achingly familiar. He'd done it 1,000 times when they were married, usually right before he kissed her. He didn't kiss her now, just let his hand fall and stepped back. You should rest, he said. It's late. So should you. I will, soon. Another lie. They were both so good at them now. Claire went to her room but didn't sleep. She lay in bed, feeling the babies move, thinking about the man in the library who was probably still working, still trying to control variables he couldn't manage, still terrified of losing what mattered. Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. For what it's worth, I never stopped either. Claire stared at the message, her heart pounding. Never stopped what? Working? Worrying? Loving her? She didn't ask for clarification, just turned off the phone and tried to sleep. But the question followed her into her dreams, unanswered and aching. The 1-month mark came and went without discussion. Claire woke up on day 31 and realized she'd stopped counting, stopped marking time until she could leave. Somewhere between Dr. Chen's weekly visits and dinners with Adrian and Margaret's quiet kindness, the penthouse had stopped feeling quite so much like a prison, which terrified her more than anything Kozlov could do. She was 28 weeks now. The babies were active, their movements visible from the outside. Sometimes Claire would catch Adrian staring at her stomach with an expression she couldn't quite read, hunger and fear and wonder all mixed together. He still worked too much, still came home with tension radiating off him like heat, but he'd started joining her for breakfast, and sometimes they'd sit in comfortable silence while Margaret bustled around the kitchen, pretending not to notice the careful distance they maintained. I have a meeting today, Adrian said one morning, his coffee untouched. Downtown. Should be back by 4. Claire nodded, spreading jam on her toast. Okay. Marcus will be here if you need anything. I know. And Dr. Chen is coming at 2 for your checkup. I remember. She looked up at him. You don't have to remind me every time you leave. I'm not going to disappear the second you're gone. Something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe. Or hope. Old habits, he said quietly. Yeah, well, try breaking them. He almost smiled. I'll work on it. After he left, Claire wandered the penthouse restlessly. She'd read most of the books in the library, watched enough television to last a lifetime, even helped Margaret with meal prep yesterday, though the housekeeper had fussed that she shouldn't be on her feet so long. She was going stir-crazy, and everyone's careful attention was making it worse. Around noon, Marcus appeared in the doorway. Miss Claire, there's someone here to see you. Claire looked up from her book. Who? A Miss Jessica Chen says she's Dr. Chen's daughter. She's early for the appointment, but wanted to know if you were available. Send her up. The woman who stepped off the elevator was younger than Claire expected, mid-20s, with her mother's kind eyes, but a sharper edge to her. She carried a leather bag and wore scrubs with a stethoscope around her neck. Miss Mitchell, she said, extending her hand.
I'm Jessica. Jess, actually. My mother asked me to do your checkup today. She's dealing with an emergency delivery across town. Is everything okay? With her patient, I mean? She'll be fine. Mom's the best. Jess smiled. But she asked me to fill in. I'm a resident at Mount Sinai, OB specialization. If you're not comfortable with that, we can reschedule. Claire shook her head. No, it's fine. Come in. The exam went smoothly.
Jess was competent and professional, talking Claire through every step. Blood pressure was good. Baby's heartbeats were strong. Everything progressing normally. You're doing great, Jess said, making notes. Really, whatever you're doing, keep it up. It's mostly Margaret's cooking and enforced bed rest. Then thank Margaret. Jess packed up her equipment. Mom mentioned you've been under a lot of stress. How's that improving? Claire hesitated. It's complicated. Isn't it always? Jess sat down, her demeanor shifting from professional to friendly. Look, I know I'm just the fill-in doctor. But Mom's told me a bit about your situation. Not details, she added quickly, just that you're dealing with some heavy stuff on top of a high-risk pregnancy. That's one way to put it. Do you have support? Friends? Family? Not really. I mean, there's Adrian and Margaret, but friends... Claire trailed off, realizing she hadn't had real friends in years. Adrian had systematically isolated her during their marriage, and she'd been too focused on survival in Queens to make new ones. She was completely alone except for the people Adrian employed. That's rough, Jess said sympathetically. If you ever need someone to talk to, someone who's not on the payroll, here's my number. She scribbled on a prescription pad and handed it over. I mean it. Even if you just want to grab coffee and complain about pregnancy symptoms. Claire stared at the number. When was the last time someone had offered friendship with no strings attached? Thanks, she managed. I might take you up on that. After Jess left, Claire sat in the living room, turning the piece of paper over in her hands. A lifeline. Maybe. Or maybe another thing that would get complicated by Adrian's control issues. Her new phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The meeting downtown isn't about business. Ask him about the warehouse on Pier 47. Claire's blood went cold. Another message from whoever was feeding her information about Adrian. She should delete it, should tell Adrian immediately. Instead, she found herself Googling Pier 47. The search results were sparse. An old industrial area, mostly abandoned warehouses and defunct shipping facilities. Not the kind of place where legitimate business meetings happened. Not the kind of place Adrian should be going alone. Claire checked the time, 1:30. Adrian had said he'd be back by 4. If he was at Pier 47, and if this mystery messenger was telling the truth, he could be walking into a trap. She should call him, warn him. But what if this was exactly what the messenger wanted? To make her panic, to make her doubt Adrian, to drive a wedge between them. Claire paced the living room, phone clutched in her hand, trying to decide. Marcus appeared in the doorway. Everything all right, Ms. Claire? Where did Adrian go today? For his meeting? Marcus's expression remained neutral. I'm not at liberty to say. It's important, please. Mr. Blackwood's schedule is confidential. Even from me? Especially from you. Marcus's tone wasn't unkind. For your own protection, ma'am. The less you know about his business dealings, the safer you are. Another cage. Another way Adrian kept her in the dark while making decisions that affected her life. Claire made a choice. I need to go out. Marcus straightened. That's not advisable. I don't care. I need fresh air, a walk, something. The roof garden isn't outside. It's just another controlled space. Claire moved toward the elevator. I'm going for a walk in Central Park. You can come with me if you want, but I'm going. Marcus shifted, blocking her path. Mr. Blackwood was very clear about security protocols. And I'm very clear that I'm losing my mind in this apartment. Move, Marcus, or I'll... She stopped, realizing she had no leverage, no power. Please, just half an hour. You can follow me, watch me, whatever you need to do. But I need to leave this building. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, typed something, waited for a response. 20 minutes, he said finally, and I stay within arm's reach at all times. It was better than nothing. Central Park was beautiful in the late afternoon light. Claire walked slowly, Marcus a constant shadow at her elbow. People jogged past,
Couples strolled hand in hand, children played on the grass. Normal life, happening all around her while she existed in this weird bubble of wealth and danger. They were near Bethesda Fountain when Claire saw him, a man watching her from across the plaza. Older, maybe 60, with silver hair and a face that looked like it had seen violence. He made no attempt to hide his interest, just stood there, staring. Marcus noticed immediately. His hand went to something under his jacket, a weapon, probably. "Don't look at him," Marcus said quietly. "Keep walking." But the man was already moving toward them, and Marcus was stepping in front of Claire, one hand out in a stopping gesture. "That's close enough," Marcus said. The man stopped, hands visible, unthreatening. When he spoke, his accent was thick, Russian. "I only want to talk." "Not interested," Marcus said. "Ms. Blackwood should be very interested." The man's eyes found Claire's. "I have information about your husband." "She's not interested in anything you have to say." "Let him talk," Claire said. "Ms. Claire, Marcus, please, I want to hear what he has to say." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he stepped aside fractionally, stayed close enough to intervene if needed. The man smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Smart woman. Victor sends his regards." "Kozlov sent you?" "Victor thinks you should know what kind of man you married, what kind of business he conducts." "I know what kind of man he is." "Do you?" The man pulled out his phone, tapped something, held it out. "Do you know about the deals he makes? The people he's hurt to protect his empire?" On the screen was a photo. Adrian in what looked like a warehouse, standing across from a man Claire didn't recognize. Wait. Between them on a table were stacks of cash, and what looked like... "That's fake," she said. "Photoshopped or... It's from 2 hours ago. Pier 47. Your husband is meeting with some very dangerous people, Ms. Blackwood. People who traffic in things that would horrify you." The man's smile widened. "Victor wanted you to know, wanted you to understand that Adrian Blackwood is not the protector he pretends to be." Claire's mind raced. The meeting, the warehouse. This man showing up now at exactly the right time to plant doubt. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Victor believes you deserve the truth. And because when you leave Adrian, and you will leave him, once you know what he really is, Victor will be there to help, to protect you and your children from the man you married." It was a recruitment pitch, disguised as concern, but ultimately about turning her against Adrian, making her vulnerable, making her useful. "Tell Victor to go to hell," Claire said. The man's smile faded. "You don't understand what you're refusing." "I understand perfectly. You want me to betray my husband based on photos that could be faked and claims I can't verify. You want me scared and isolated and willing to trust you instead of him. It's manipulation, and I'm not interested." "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." Claire turned to Marcus. "We're done here." Marcus moved immediately, positioning himself between Claire and the Russian. "If you come near her again, it won't be a conversation." They walked away quickly, Marcus's hand on her elbow, guiding her back toward the penthouse. Claire's heart was racing, adrenaline making her hands shake. "We need to tell Mr. Blackwood," Marcus said. "I know." "Immediately." "I said I know." Back at the penthouse, Marcus called Adrian while Claire sat in the living room trying to process what had just happened. The photo had looked real. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence, but that didn't mean the implications were true. Did it? Adrian burst through the door 20 minutes later, his face thunderous. He went straight to Claire, hands on her shoulders, eyes scanning her for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm fine." "Marcus said Kozlov's man approached you." "What did he say? What did he want?" "To make me doubt you. To make me think you're..." Claire pulled out her phone, showed him the messages from the unknown number. "Someone's been sending me these, warning me about you, about your business." Adrian's expression darkened as he read. "How long?" "A few weeks, since I've been here." "And you didn't tell me?" "I didn't know if I could trust you. I still don't know." Claire met his eyes. "He showed me a photo. You at Pier 47 today, meeting with someone, money on the table. He said you were dealing with traffickers." Adrian's jaw clenched. "And you believed him?" "I don't know what to believe. You've been lying to me about where you go, what you do. You keep me in this apartment like some kind of...
The meeting at Pier 47 was a setup, Adrian interrupted. A trap meant to make me look exactly like what Kozlov wanted you to see. I went there with a full security team, expecting exactly what happened. Photos, surveillance, evidence that could be manipulated. So it wasn't real? The meeting was real. The implications were not. Adrian pulled out his phone, showed her a different angle of the same scene. That money on the table? Marked bills. Part of a sting operation I've been running with the FBI for 3 months. The man I was meeting is an undercover agent. We're building a case against Kozlov's actual trafficking operation. Claire stared at the photo. You're working with the FBI? Have been since Kozlov started targeting me. I couldn't tell you because the fewer people who know, the safer everyone is. Adrian's voice was tight. But Kozlov's been trying to discredit me, to make it look like I'm the criminal, so when he moves against me, he looks justified. Why didn't you tell me any of this? Because I was trying to protect you, to keep you separate from the ugliest parts of my world. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I didn't want you to know how bad it's gotten, how dangerous. So you lied. I omitted. There's a difference. Is there? Claire's voice rose. You keep making decisions for me, Adrian, deciding what I can handle, what I need to know. You don't trust me. I don't trust anyone. Not with this. His eyes were bleak. Kozlov has killed people for less than what I'm doing to him. If he knew you had this information, if he thought you were involved, you'd become an even bigger target. I'm already a target. He sent someone to approach me in Central Park. The information is out there whether you tell me or not. Adrian's expression shifted to something darker. He approached you in public? With Marcus right there? He knew I'd be there. Someone's watching us, Adrian. Watching me. Your security isn't as tight as you think. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Adrian pulled out his phone, made a call. I want a full sweep. The penthouse, the building, Ms. Claire's phone, everything. Someone's feeding Kozlov information, and I want to know how. He paused, listening. I don't care what it costs. Get it done. He hung up and turned back to Claire. Pack a bag. Essentials only. We're leaving. Leaving? To go where? Somewhere Kozlov can't find us. Somewhere safe. Adrian, this isn't negotiable, Claire. If they know your movements, if they can predict where you'll be, then this building isn't secure anymore. We move. Tonight. Margaret appeared in the doorway, already moving before Adrian even looked at her. I'll help Ms. Claire pack. Thank you, Margaret. You're coming too. I'm not leaving anyone here who Kozlov might use as leverage. Within an hour, they were ready. Claire had a single bag with clothes and essentials. Margaret had packed food, medications, everything Dr. Chen had prescribed. Marcus coordinated with the security team, arranging transportation. Where are we going? Claire asked as they rode the elevator down. A property outside the city, secure location, off the books. Kozlov won't know about it. How can you be sure? Because I bought it under a shell corporation 6 years ago, and I've never brought anyone there. Not even my business partners know it exists. The garage was underground, accessed through a private entrance. 3 SUVs waited, engines running. Adrian put Claire in the middle vehicle, Margaret beside her with Marcus driving. Adrian took the lead vehicle. They drove for 2 hours, heading north out of Manhattan and into Westchester. The landscape changed from urban to suburban to rural, houses spreading farther apart until there was nothing but trees and winding roads. Finally, they turned onto an unmarked driveway. It stretched for almost a mile through woods before opening onto a clearing. The house was modern, all glass and steel, built into the side of a hill. Lights glowed warmly inside. Someone had prepared it for their arrival. How many safe houses do you have? Claire asked as they pulled up. Enough. Adrian opened her door, helped her out. Come on, let's get you settled. Inside was beautiful in an impersonal way. Expensive furniture, art on the walls, everything perfectly arranged. It looked like a showroom, not a home. No personal touches. No evidence anyone had ever actually lived here. Guest room is upstairs, Adrian said. First door on the right. Margaret's is next to yours. I'm across the hall. Where's your room? I'll take the study downstairs. I need to work anyway. Of course he did. Even running from danger, he couldn't stop controlling everything. Claire climbed the stairs, exhaustion hitting her all at once. The guest room was nice. King bed, attached bathroom, windows overlooking the woods. Margaret appeared with her bag and some towels. "Get some rest, dear," Margaret said kindly. "I'll bring dinner up later." After she left, Claire sat on the bed, trying to process the last few hours. The Russian in the park, the photos, Adrian's revelations about the FBI, the sudden flight from Manhattan. Everything was spiraling out of control and she was powerless to stop it. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jess Chen. "Hey, it's Jess. Mom said you had to leave the city suddenly. Everything okay?" Claire stared at the message. How did Dr. Chen know they'd left? Adrian had barely told anyone. Unless, she typed back, "How did your mother know we left?" The response came quickly. Mr. Blackwood called her, asked her to be on standby in case you went into early labor from the stress. Standard precaution. Claire set down her phone, feeling foolish. Not everything was a conspiracy. Adrian was just being careful, overprotective, as always. She lay back on the bed, one hand on her stomach. The babies were quiet tonight, maybe sensing her exhaustion. A soft knock on the door. "Come in," she called. Adrian stepped inside, holding a tray. "Margaret's exhausted. I thought I'd bring dinner up myself." He set the tray on the bedside table. Soup, bread, water. Simple, but exactly what she needed. "Thank you," Claire said. Adrian nodded, turned to leave. "Wait," he stopped, looking back. "I'm sorry," Claire said, "for not telling you about the messages, for not trusting you. You had every reason not to trust me. Maybe, but you were trying to protect me. In your deeply controlling, frustrating way, you were trying to keep me safe." Something softened in Adrian's expression. "I don't know how to do it differently, how to protect someone without controlling them. I've never learned that balance." "Then maybe we both need to learn, together." He studied her for a long moment. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I'm tired of fighting you, tired of running from something that might actually be worth staying for." Claire took a breath. "I'm saying that maybe we try, really try. Not because of the babies, not because we're legally married, but because somewhere under all the damage and distrust, there might still be something worth saving." Adrian crossed the room slowly, like he was afraid sudden movement would shatter the moment. He sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to crowd her. "I don't deserve another chance," he said quietly. "Probably not. But I'm offering one anyway." "Why?" "Because despite everything, despite all the ways you've suffocated me, you've never once lied about caring, about wanting me safe. That has to count for something." Adrian's hand found hers, his grip gentle. "If we do this, if we really try, I need you to tell me when I'm crossing lines, when I'm controlling instead of protecting, because I won't see it myself. Deal. But you need to trust me more. Include me in decisions. Stop deciding what I can handle. I'll try. That's all I'm asking." They sat in silence for a moment, hands linked, the evening light fading outside the windows. "I need to tell you something," Adrian said finally, "about Kozlov, about why this is so dangerous." "Okay. The deal I'm helping the FBI build, it's bigger than just trafficking. Kozlov is laundering money for several international crime syndicates. If we can prove it, if we can get him convicted, it destroys his entire network." Adrian's jaw tightened. "But it also makes me a target, a permanent one. Even after he's arrested, his associates will want revenge." Claire processed this. "So this doesn't end, even when Kozlov is gone?" "No. The immediate threat ends. But there will always be danger. Always be people who see me as an enemy." He looked at her. "I need you to understand that. If you stay, if we do this, you're choosing a life that will never be completely safe." "No life is completely safe, Adrian. I could have stayed in Queens and gotten hit by a bus. Safety isn't guaranteed anywhere." "This is different." "I know." Claire squeezed his hand. "But I'm choosing it anyway. For better or worse, right? That was in the vows." Adrian's laugh was rough, almost surprised. "You remember the vows?" "I remember all of it, the good parts and the bad." He lifted her hand, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "I don't know how to be what you need. Then we'll figure it out together." She pulled him closer, resting her forehead against his.
But Adrian, I need you to promise me something. Anything. When this is over, when Kozlov is dealt with, we talk to someone. A therapist. Someone who can help us not repeat the same patterns. He hesitated, and she could see him wanting to refuse, to insist they could handle it themselves. Please, she said. For the girls. They deserve parents who've dealt with their issues. Finally, he nodded. Okay. When this is over, we get help. Thank you. Adrian stood, releasing her hand reluctantly. You should eat. Rest. Tomorrow's going to be difficult. What happens tomorrow? The FBI moves on Kozlov. I have to testify, provide evidence. It's the final piece they need for the arrest warrant. And if something goes wrong, it won't. Adrian, it won't, he repeated more firmly. I've planned for every contingency. I'll be surrounded by federal agents. Kozlov can't touch me. But his eyes said he wasn't as certain as his words claimed. After he left, Claire picked at her dinner, her appetite gone. Tomorrow Adrian would testify against a dangerous man, would put himself directly in the line of fire, and there was nothing she could do but wait. She was reaching for her phone to text Jess, needing to talk to someone, anyone, when she heard shouting downstairs. Claire moved to the door, opened it carefully. Adrian's voice, sharp and angry. Marcus responding, urgent and tense. Then another voice she didn't recognize. Something was wrong. She made it halfway down the stairs before Adrian appeared at the bottom, his face ashen. What happened? Claire demanded. The FBI agent, the one I was meeting with at the warehouse. Adrian's voice was hollow. He's dead. Someone killed him 2 hours ago. The room tilted. What does that mean? It means Kozlov knows about the testimony, knows what we're planning. Adrian's hands clenched into fists. And it means he's willing to kill federal agents to stop it. Then don't go, don't testify. If I don't, he wins. He stays free, keeps operating, keeps hurting people. I don't care about other people. I care about you staying alive. Adrian climbed the stairs, took her hands. The meeting's been moved. Secure location, increased security. The FBI isn't backing down, and neither am I. This is insane. This is necessary. He pulled her close, careful of her stomach. I need you to stay here tomorrow, with Margaret and the security team. Don't leave this house for any reason. Adrian, promise me, Claire. Whatever happens, you stay here where it's safe. She wanted to argue. To demand he let her come, let her be there, let her be part of this instead of locked away again. But the fear in his eyes stopped her. I promise, she whispered. He kissed her forehead, lingering. I'll come back. I swear I'll come back to you. It sounded too much like goodbye. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, feeling the babies move, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the safe house. Somewhere downstairs, Adrian was awake too, probably working, planning, trying to control an outcome that was increasingly unpredictable. Around 3 a.m, she gave up and went downstairs. She found him in the study, surrounded by documents, his laptop open. He looked up when she entered, exhaustion written in every line of his face. Can't sleep? He asked. Neither can you, apparently. Too much to do. Claire crossed to him, took his hand, pulled him to his feet. Come to bed. Claire, not for that. Just, I don't want to be alone tonight, and I don't think you should be either. For a moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then he nodded, let her lead him upstairs. They lay together in the guest bed, fully clothed, not touching except where their hands linked between them. The babies kicked, active in the quiet darkness. They're restless tonight, Adrian murmured. They know something's wrong. His free hand came to rest on her stomach, and the babies immediately responded, pushing against his palm like they recognized him. I'm sorry, he said into the darkness, for everything I put you through, for every way I failed you. We failed each other. That's how broken relationships work. But we're trying now. Yeah, we are. They fell asleep like that, hands linked, his palm on her stomach where their daughters grew. Two broken people trying to piece together something that might resemble a future. Neither of them knew that by tomorrow night everything would change, that the call would come while Adrian was in the FBI's secure facility, that Claire would hear the words, "He's been shot," and feel her entire world shatter. But for now, in the quiet darkness of the safe house, they had this moment of peace. It would have to be enough. Adrian left at dawn.
Claire woke to find his side of the bed empty, the sheets already cold. For a moment, panic seized her, that he'd left without saying goodbye, that she'd never see him again. Then she heard voices downstairs and forced herself to breathe. She found him in the kitchen with Marcus and 2 FBI agents she didn't recognize. They all stopped talking when she entered. That abrupt silence that meant they'd been discussing things she wasn't supposed to hear. "I thought you'd sleep longer," Adrian said, crossing to her. "Hard to sleep when you're sneaking out." "I wasn't sneaking. I was trying not to wake you." "Same difference." Claire looked at the agents. "When does he testify?" 10 o'clock, the older one said. He was maybe 50, with graying hair and the kind of face that had seen too much. "Federal courthouse downtown. We've got the route secured, the building locked down. Mr. Blackwood will be perfectly safe." The words sounded rehearsed, reassuring in a way that made Claire trust them less. "Can I come?" she asked. "No," Adrian and both agents said simultaneously. "It's too dangerous," Adrian continued. "Kozlov's people will be watching. If they see you there, then they'll know you care about someone other than yourself." "They already know that, Adrian. They approached me in Central Park, remember? Which is exactly why you need to stay here." His voice was firm. "Claire, please. I need to know you're safe so I can focus on what I have to do." She wanted to argue, wanted to demand her right to be there, to support him. But the fear in his eyes, fear he was trying so hard to hide, stopped her. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll stay." Relief flooded his expression. He pulled her close, careful of her stomach, and pressed a kiss to her temple. "I'll be back before you know it. This afternoon at the latest." "You better be." He held her for a long moment, like he was memorizing the feel of her in his arms. Then he stepped back, all business again. "Margaret's upstairs. Marcus is staying here with a full security team. Don't answer the door for anyone except me." He looked at Marcus. "Anything happens, anything at all, you get her to the panic room." "There's a panic room?" Claire asked. "Basement, steel reinforced, supplies for 3 days. You won't need it," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "But it's there." The FBI agents were already moving toward the door. Adrian followed, then paused at the threshold. "Claire, don't," she interrupted. "Don't say goodbye like you're not coming back. Just go do what you have to do and come home." He nodded once, sharp and controlled, and left. Claire stood in the empty kitchen, listening to the SUVs pull away, and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. The morning crawled by. Margaret made breakfast that Claire couldn't eat. She tried reading, watching television, anything to distract herself. Nothing worked. The babies were restless, kicking constantly, like they could sense her anxiety. Around 9:30, her phone rang. Jess Chen's number. "Hey," Claire answered. "Not a great time." "I know, Mom told me about the testimony. I just wanted to check on you, make sure you're holding up." "I'm fine, terrified, but fine." "Totally normal. You want me to come out there? Keep you company?" Claire almost said yes. Almost accepted the offer of friendship, of someone to sit with her through the waiting. Then she remembered Adrian's warnings about security, about not trusting anyone. "Thanks, but I should probably stay put. Adrian's paranoid enough as it is. Fair enough? But call me if you need anything, okay? Even if it's just to vent." After they hung up, Claire felt marginally better. It was nice, having someone who cared without wanting something in return. 10 o'clock came and went. Claire imagined Adrian walking into the courthouse, surrounded by federal agents, sitting in some sterile room, answering questions, providing evidence that would destroy Viktor Kozlov's empire. She tried not to imagine all the things that could go wrong. By 11, she couldn't sit still anymore. She paced the living room, drove Margaret to distraction, checked her phone every 30 seconds, even though Adrian had said he wouldn't be able to call until it was over. 11:30, noon, 12:15. The call came at 12:23, but it wasn't Adrian's number. It was one of the FBI agents from this morning. Claire's hands shook as she answered. "Hello? Miss Mitchell, this is Agent Crawford. I need you to stay calm." Every molecule of oxygen left the room. "What happened?" Her voice didn't sound like her own. "There was an incident at the courthouse. Mr. Blackwood has been injured. He's being transported to New York Presbyterian. You should—" Claire didn't hear the rest. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. "Injured."
Adrian was injured. She was moving before conscious thought kicked in, grabbing her coat, her bag, heading for the door. Marcus materialized in front of her, blocking her path.
Ms. Claire, you need to stay here. Get out of my way. Mr. Blackwood's orders were explicit. If anything happened, I don't care about his orders. My husband is in the hospital, and I'm going to him. You can either drive me or I'll walk, but I'm leaving this house. Marcus's jaw tightened. She could see him calculating, weighing his loyalty to Adrian against the pregnant woman in front of him who looked ready to fight through him if necessary. I'll drive, he said finally, but we're taking the full security team, and if I say we leave, we leave. No arguments. Fine, let's go. The drive to Manhattan took 90 minutes of pure hell. Marcus wouldn't tell her anything beyond what Agent Crawford had said. There'd been an incident, Adrian was injured, they were taking him to the hospital. He wouldn't say how badly Adrian was hurt, wouldn't confirm whether he was even alive. Claire sat in the back seat, one hand pressed to her stomach, where the babies were kicking frantically, and tried not to think about walking into that hospital to find Adrian already gone. She'd just gotten him back. She'd just decided to try, to trust, to build something real. She couldn't lose him now. New York Presbyterian was chaos when they arrived. News cameras outside, police everywhere, reporters shouting questions that Marcus ignored. He got Claire through a side entrance, up to a private floor where more FBI agents were stationed. Agent Crawford met them at the elevator. Ms. Mitchell, where is he? Surgery. He was shot twice, shoulder and abdomen. The shoulder wound is superficial, but the abdominal injury is more serious. They're working on him now. Shot. Adrian had been shot. Claire's knees went weak. Marcus caught her, guided her to a chair in the waiting room. What happened? She managed. Kozlov's people breached security. We don't know how yet. Mr. Blackwood had just finished his testimony when shots were fired. 2 agents are down, 1 critical. Crawford's expression was grim. Mr. Blackwood took a bullet meant for the federal prosecutor, probably saved her life. Of course he had. Adrian would always put himself between danger and someone he was trying to protect. It was who he was, for better or worse. The shooter? Claire asked. Dead, taken out by our tactical team, and we have Kozlov in custody. The evidence Mr. Blackwood provided was enough for the warrant. We arrested him 20 minutes ago. Small comfort when Adrian was in surgery, bleeding, possibly dying. How long has he been in there? About 40 minutes. The surgeon said it could be 2 to 3 hours total. 3 hours. Claire didn't know if she could survive 3 hours of not knowing. Margaret arrived shortly after, breathless and pale. She sat beside Claire, took her hand, and they waited together in awful silence. 1 hour passed, then 2. Claire's back was killing her, the babies were in constant motion, and her mind kept conjuring worst-case scenarios she couldn't shut off. What if Adrian died? What if their daughters never knew their father? What if the last real conversation they'd had was her promising to try, and he never got to see her keep that promise? At the 2.5-hour mark, a surgeon emerged, still in his scrubs. Everyone in the waiting room stood at once. Family of Adrian Blackwood? I'm his wife, Claire said, moving forward. Is he? He's alive. The surgery went well. We repaired the damage to his intestine and stopped the internal bleeding. The next 24 hours are critical, but if there are no complications, he should make a full recovery. The relief was so intense Claire actually swayed. Margaret steadied her. Can I see him? Claire asked. He's in recovery now. Once he's moved to ICU, you can sit with him. But Ms. Blackwood, the surgeon's expression grew serious. I need to stress that he's not out of the woods yet. He lost a lot of blood. There's still risk of infection, complications. The next day is crucial. I understand. When can I see him? Give us about an hour to get him settled. The longest hour of Claire's life followed. She paced, sat, paced again. Tried to eat the sandwich Margaret brought her and managed 3 bites. The babies were going crazy, like they knew something was desperately wrong. Finally, a nurse came to get her. He's awake, groggy from the anesthesia, but asking for you. Claire followed her to a private room in the ICU. The space was full of machines, monitors beeping steadily. And in the bed, looking smaller and more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him, was Adrian. He was pale, IV lines running into both arms, oxygen cannula in his nose. But his eyes were open, and when he saw her, something in his expression eased. "Hey," he said, his voice rough. "Hey yourself." Claire crossed to the bed, taking his hand carefully. "You scared the hell out of me." "Sorry, wasn't planning to get shot." "How considerate." His laugh turned into a wince. "Don't make me laugh. Hurts." "Then stop almost dying." Her voice cracked on the last word. Adrian's hand tightened on hers. "I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. The surgeon said the next 24 hours are critical. I'm tougher than I look." "You look like you've been shot twice." "Fair point." He studied her face. "You should sit. You look exhausted." "I'm fine." "Claire, I'm not leaving, so don't bother trying to send me away." Something softened in his expression. "I wouldn't dream of it." A nurse came in to check his vitals, adjusted his pain medication. After she left, Adrian's eyes started to drift closed. "Sleep," Claire said softly. "I'll be here when you wake up." "Promise?" "I promise." He fell asleep holding her hand. The next 24 hours blurred together. Claire refused to leave Adrian's side except for quick bathroom breaks. She slept in an uncomfortable chair the nurses brought in, ate whatever Margaret brought her, and watched Adrian sleep through his pain medication cycles. Dr. Chen came to check on her, concerned about the stress on the pregnancy. But the babies were fine, active and strong, apparently unfazed by their mother's terror. "They're fighters," Dr. Chen said, like both their parents. Adrian developed a fever around hour 18. Claire watched in helpless fear as nurses worked to bring his temperature down, as doctors checked for infection. But the antibiotics kicked in, the fever broke, and by hour 22 he was awake and coherent and complaining about the hospital food. "That's how I know you're going to be fine," Claire said. "You're already being difficult." "I'm not difficult. I have standards." "You were shot. Lower your standards." Agent Crawford came by to update them. Kozlov was in federal custody, charged with everything from racketeering to murder. The evidence Adrian had provided, combined with what they'd seized in the arrest, was enough to guarantee conviction. "His entire network is collapsing," Crawford said. "His associates are scrambling to distance themselves. You did good work, Mr. Blackwood. Dangerous work, but good." "The agents who were shot?" Adrian asked. "How are they?" "Patterson didn't make it. Henderson is critical but stable." Crawford's expression was grim. "Patterson had a wife. 3 kids." Adrian's face went gray. "I want to take care of them, financially, education, housing, whatever they need." "That's generous, but..." "It's not generosity. It's the least I can do. Set it up through my attorney, whatever they need, for as long as they need it." After Crawford left, Claire saw Adrian staring at the ceiling, jaw tight. "It's not your fault," she said quietly. "Patterson died because of my testimony." Patterson died because Kozlov is a murderer. Don't take that on yourself." "He had 3 kids, Claire. 3 kids who don't have a father anymore. And because of you, Kozlov can't hurt anyone else's family. You stopped him. Patterson's sacrifice meant something." Adrian looked at her, and she saw the weight he was carrying, guilt and grief, and the knowledge that his choices had consequences beyond himself. "Come here," he said, tugging on her hand. Claire stood carefully, mindful of all his tubes and wires, and leaned down. He wrapped his arms around her as best he could, pulling her close. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "I know I don't say it enough. I know I'm terrible at showing it in ways that don't feel like control. But I love you. I always have." Claire's eyes burned. "I love you too. Even when I hate you, I love you." "That's fair." They stayed like that until a nurse came in and gently suggested that Ms. Blackwood should probably sit back down before she went into early labor from the awkward position. 3 days later, they released Adrian with strict instructions for rest and recovery. He ignored most of them immediately, taking calls from his office, trying to work from his hospital bed. "You were shot," Claire reminded him. "Maybe take a week off." "I'm fine." "You have a hole in your intestine." "Had a hole. They fixed it." Adrian, "I'm fine," he repeated, but his hands were shaking as he typed on his laptop. Not from pain, from exhaustion, from pushing too hard too fast. Claire took the laptop away. "Hey." You need to rest, actually rest, or you're going to end up back in surgery. There's too much to do. The business, the FBI case, arrangements for Patterson's family can all wait 48 hours while you recover. She set the laptop on the table, well out of his reach. The world will not end if Adrian Blackwood takes 2 days off. He looked ready to argue. Then something in her expression must have stopped him because he sank back against the pillows. 2 days, he said. 1 week. 3 days. 5. And that's my final offer. His lips twitched. You drive a hard bargain. I learned from the best. They went back to the safe house to recover. Adrian spent the first week moving between bed and the couch, trying not to pull his stitches. Claire stayed with him, reading aloud when he was bored, bringing him food Margaret prepared, making sure he took his medications on schedule. It was oddly domestic, peaceful even, like they were a normal couple dealing with normal problems instead of two broken people recovering from gunshot wounds and criminal conspiracies. I've been thinking, Adrian said one evening. They were on the couch, his head in her lap while she ran her fingers through his hair. About what you said, getting help. Therapy? Yeah, I called someone, a specialist who works with trauma and relationship issues. Made an appointment for next month. Claire's hand stilled. Really? Really? I don't want to be this person anymore. The one who controls everything because I'm terrified of losing it. I want to be better. For you. For the girls. He looked up at her. I don't know if I can change, but I want to try. That's all I'm asking. He sat up carefully, wincing at the pull on his stitches. There's something else. I've been thinking about the business, about the risks I take, the enemies I make. Patterson's kids don't have a father because of my choices. Adrian, let me finish. He took her hand. I'm stepping back. Not completely. The business is who I am. But I'm delegating more, letting other people take the lead on dangerous projects, because I have too much to lose now. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. I'm going to be a father, Claire. These girls deserve better than a dad who's constantly in danger. They deserve someone who comes home at night, who's there for school plays and soccer games and all the normal things. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. You really mean that? Every word. He pulled her close as his healing body would allow. I almost died 3 times in the last month. Each time, all I could think about was you, about not getting to see our daughters born, about missing everything. I can't keep living like that. So what do? We build something different, something safer. We raise our girls and we go to therapy and we figure out how to be actual partners instead of adversaries. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. And we get married, again, but properly this time. Claire pulled back to look at him. What? Marry me, Claire. Not because we're already legally married. Not because of the babies, but because I want to stand in front of you and make promises I actually intend to keep. Promises about trust and honesty and not suffocating you with my control issues. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. I got shot, cut me some slack. She laughed, and it felt good. Felt real. Okay. Okay, you'll marry me? Okay, I'll marry you. Again. After the babies are born and you're fully healed and we've been to at least 3 therapy sessions. Deal. And he kissed her, gentle and careful. I love you. I love you too, even though you're impossible. Especially because I'm impossible. They were married quietly 6 weeks after the twins were born. The delivery had been complicated. Claire went into labor at 36 weeks, earlier than ideal, but late enough that the babies were healthy. 12 hours of labor that left her exhausted and terrified, but then suddenly there were 2 tiny humans in the world. Isabella, born first, screaming her outrage at being evicted. Lucia, 2 minutes later, quieter, but just as fierce. Adrian had been there for all of it, holding Claire's hand, talking her through contractions, turning pale when things got difficult but never leaving. When the doctor placed Isabella in his arms, Claire watched him break completely, tears streaming down his face, his whole body shaking as he looked down at his daughter. She's perfect, he'd whispered. They're both perfect. The wedding was small, just Margaret, Marcus, Dr. Chen, and her daughter Jess, and a judge who'd agreed to perform the ceremony at the safe house. Adrian was still recovering, still moving carefully, still dealing with residual pain, but he stood straight and tall as Claire walked toward him. She wore a simple white dress. Nothing fancy, nothing that cost thousands of dollars, just something that made her feel beautiful. Adrian wore a dark suit and an expression of complete wonder. The vows were the standard legal ones, but afterward, Adrian took her hands and added his own. "I promise to trust you," he said, "to tell you the truth even when it's hard, to ask instead of deciding, to protect without controlling." His voice roughened. "I promise to be the partner you deserve. It's going to take work, probably a lot of work, but I'm committed to trying every single day." Claire's throat was tight. "I promise to tell you when you're being overbearing, to call you out when you cross lines, to trust you enough to let you in instead of running when things get hard." She squeezed his hands. "I promise to build this life with you. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but worth it." The judge pronounced them married again, and Adrian kissed her like it was the first time and the last time and every time in between. Margaret cried. Marcus looked suspiciously misty. "Doctor." Chen took photos while Jess held both babies, who slept through the entire ceremony. They had cake. They danced in the living room to music from Margaret's phone. They toasted with sparkling cider and laughed at Marcus's awkward attempt at a speech. It was perfect in its imperfection. That night, after everyone had left and the babies were asleep in their bassinets, Claire and Adrian stood at the window looking out at the dark woods. "No regrets?" he asked. "A million regrets. Just none about this." "Fair enough." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, careful of her still healing body. "What do we do now?" "Now we figure out how to be parents, how to be partners, how to build something that lasts." "No pressure." "None at all." They stood there for a long time, watching the darkness, feeling the weight of their choices and their promises and the future stretching out before them. It wouldn't be easy. Adrian would still struggle with control. Claire would still feel trapped sometimes. They'd fight and frustrate each other and have to work harder than most people just to be functional. But they'd chosen this. Chosen each other. Chosen to try. And sometimes that was enough. 6 months later, Claire sat in the nursery watching Adrian try to get both babies to sleep simultaneously. It was not going well. Isabella was screaming, Lucia was fussing, and Adrian looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 20 minutes. "You need help?" Claire asked from the doorway. "I've got this." "You clearly don't." "I'm figuring it out." He bounced Isabella, who screamed louder in protest. "Why do babies hate me?" "They don't hate you. They're tired and you're stressed and they can feel it." "How do I unstress when they're screaming?" "Breathe and lower your expectations." "You can't control babies, Adrian. They don't work that way." He shot her a look that was pure exasperation. But he took a breath, deliberately relaxed his shoulders, and tried a different approach. Started singing, badly, off-key, but with enough genuine affection that both babies started to calm. Claire watched him figure it out, watched him adapt, and felt something warm settle in her chest. They'd been to 4 therapy sessions so far. They were hard, dredging up old wounds, examining patterns neither of them wanted to face, but they were also helping. Adrian was learning to communicate instead of control. Claire was learning to stay instead of run. It was messy and uncomfortable, and sometimes they left therapy and didn't speak for hours. But they kept going, kept trying. Adrian got both babies to sleep, actual sleep, not just quiet, and placed them gently in their cribs. He stood there for a moment, watching them breathe, his expression soft. "I don't know what I'm doing," he said quietly. "Nobody does. We're all just faking it and hoping they turn out okay. What if I mess them up? What if they grow up and need therapy because of me? Then we'll pay for it, and we'll apologize, and we'll hope they forgive us." Claire moved beside him, slipping her hand into his. "We're not going to be perfect parents, Adrian. We're just going to be present ones. That's more than a lot of people get." He looked down at her, and she saw the fear there, the terror of failing these 2 tiny humans who depended on him completely. "You're going to be a good father," she said, "not because you're perfect, because you care enough to try. And if trying isn't enough, then we try harder, together." His arm came around her shoulders, pulling her close. They stood there watching their daughters sleep, 2 imperfect people trying to do right by the lives they'd created.
It wasn't the fairy tale Claire had imagined when she was younger.
It wasn't easy or simple or guaranteed, but it was real and messy and worth fighting for. She'd run from Adrian once thinking freedom meant being alone. But she'd learned the hard way that freedom wasn't about running. It was about choosing, about deciding what you wanted and fighting for it, even when it was hard. She'd chosen this complicated man with his control issues and his trauma, chosen these two beautiful girls who were already showing signs of their parents' stubbornness, chosen a life that would never be completely safe or simple or easy, and she'd keep choosing it every single day. Because some things were worth the fight, some people were worth the second chance, and some stories didn't end with running away. They ended with choosing to stay.